Hi, everyone, and welcome to the AI Interconnect podcast, the show where we talk with the builders, the bold thinkers, and the doers shaping the future of real estate, tech, and automation. I'm your host, Lauren, and today I'm joined by someone who is just thinking about what's next in PropTech. He's building it. Dylan Goren is the co-founder and CEO of Pillar, a platform that's tackling one of the biggest blind spots in real estate compliance and risk management. He is part of a new generation of founders who are blending deep domain expertise with smart, scalable tech. And in today's conversation, we are going to explore how he's doing it. And Dylan, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Lauren. Excited to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. Let's start at the beginning, like I always like Dylan. Um, Give us a quick version of your journey. What led you to launch Pillar, and was there any specific moment or insight that sparkled this?
Yeah. So I've told this story a few times on several other podcasts, so I'll try and shed some new light on some of the background behind starting Pillar. The short and sweet of it is that I have been working in real estate technology from companies of 2 people all the way up to 90,000 people when I was most recently at JLL before jumping off on my own to start Pillar. The thing that really got me excited about building Pillar is kind of waking up over the course of the 5 or 6 years that I learned more and more about the real estate space, getting excited about the fact that it impacts almost every aspect of our daily lives. If you look at the four walls that surround us right now, uh, someone had to take a lot of time to go and put all of that together. So the thing that led me to ultimately take the leap and start the company was really a combination of seeing that there just was a gap between technology understanding real estate and real estate understanding technology. I grew up a really big Apple fan. I grew up with Mac computers in my hands. My dad worked in technology, and it was his job, as he told me, to bring technology home and understand what the latest and greatest was. And I have really fond memories of growing up playing video games as a kid on Nintendo 64s and Mac computers and learning the joy behind technology, and that there's much more to it than Excel spreadsheets and emails and endless to-do lists. So that was my perception of what technology really should be. Is it something that should bring joy and make your life easier? And I think largely what I was seeing in the real estate space was highly utilitarian technology. There was no technology that was built with, an artistry to it or an intention to bring joy to someone else. And so that fundamentally is where I felt really passionate about trying to bridge a gap and taking the effort to sit down and talk to the people who would be using our software, using Pillar, and empathize with them to see, how excellent could we make it? How much could we raise the bar beyond what their expectations might even be to try and bring joy to them in their day-to-day lives and make their day-to-day lives a little bit better and easier. So I could share a lot more about that, but that's a little bit about the intention behind starting Pillar. When we took the jump, we iterated through a lot of different ideas and ended up where we are today, helping with automating land acquisitions. But that's a little bit of context behind it.
That's that's uh, that's beautiful. No, it's I'm sure it's very interesting, and we're gonna get into it in a moment. Um, First things come to mind is, uh, I mean, as you mentioned, you grew up into this environment and technology environment, but uh, you saw also with Nintendo 54, whatever platform, what's working and what's not working, and was there something broken uh, you kept seeing over and over again in that space? Some blind spot that no one was solving, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the most basic level, the thing that I was seeing was just reliability and ease of use in software solutions across every aspect of real estate. So I've worked in companies that help technology companies that have built products for basically every stage of the real estate life cycle, starting from planning, entitlement, pre-development, all the way in through operations and disposition. So I've seen technology solutions at every single stage, and I think that you know when surveying the competitive landscape and talking to end users, I think the most basic things were the most important things that we're missing, which is just software that when you click a certain button, it does a certain thing every single time. It loads quickly. There's not a million different buttons and configurations to try and figure out the job it is that you want to do. And I think particularly for the real estate professional, these people's jobs are not to be working with technology and being experts at technology all day, every single day. There are certainly specialized roles, but broadly in the real estate profession, your job is not to be a software engineer. Your job is not to understand how to configure and write software yourself. So the need for something that is easy to use is very, very high. That's the most basic thing that I would say that's missing that we try and, again, prioritize in everything that we build. I would say that more specifically toward what we are building today, what we noticed is that land acquisition teams for residential real estate development companies, mostly like large scale residential development projects, they always need to be finding land to go and build their next project in order to keep the wheels turning and keep the business alive. And the tools that they were using were primarily leveraging public government websites, some third-party tools such as, say, Google Maps or Google Earth to browse satellite imagery. But there was this job of acquiring land that was being done across 5-10 different websites on average, completely manually. And the thing that caught our eye there is, number one, a lot of the people we were speaking to who were doing this job weren't particularly happy with the fact that they had to navigate across 5 to 10 different websites. And it was just kind of accepted as it's the way that things have to work. And then number two, it really interested us that all of this work was happening on the computer. So that to us raised our eyebrows as this is a really interesting area to try and build a new solution, because the job and the work is already happening digitally. It wasn't happening necessarily all out in the field, driving in a car or walking a site, although certainly very important parts of that were happening there. But that's the thing that really caught our eye and said, this is something that we want to pay attention to and try and improve.
Yeah, no, it's that's very clear and makes a lot of sense. Um, then, then for people hearing about Pillar for the first time, what exactly is the platform, and what problem exactly are you solving?
Yeah.
Many
So
many different ones, of course, but
Yeah, so in short, Pillar is an end-to-end automation platform for land acquisitions. We break down the critical stages of finding and acquiring land into 3 simple steps that you can leverage our platform for to identify attractive submarkets, find attractive sites, and get in touch with owners of those sites to go and build up your pipeline and win more land so that you can focus your time as a real estate professional on winning the deals, penciling the deals, building the deals, instead of the repetitive tasks of researching and finding the land itself.
okay, I like it. Yeah, very interesting. Um, what do you think most people get wrong about compliance and risk in PropTech? Where's the gap between perception and reality?
Tell me a little bit more about your question. So when you say compliance and risk in prop tech, tell me more about what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, all these, there's always things to go through when there's an acquisition, a land acquisition, and the regulation, the things like this. Are you, are you focused on that also?
Yeah, so you're talking about compliance and risk on the real estate side, if I'm a real
Yeah,
estate professional, I have to navigate different requirements, and how you're asking
correct,
how I think about that and how we try and help with it.
correct.
Yeah, so what I would say in the land acquisition side, where compliance and risk come into play, there's a lot of different variables, which I think is, I guess, what you're pointing toward here. So you've got zoning compliance and requirements where, if you're trying to build a certain size project, you have to be navigating the zoning codes of the local jurisdiction. In the United States, there's some tens of thousands of different local jurisdictions. Every single one has unique zoning requirements that you have to navigate, which are located on different websites for you to go and find in different formats, from PDFs to like maps and GIS viewers. So this is certainly something that is very challenging to navigate. Some of what Pillar can help with doing is finding leading indicators to basically accelerate your research of zoning requirements. So I'll give you an example for multifamily. We are not currently in the business, although we've done this before, of processing and interpreting zoning codes across the United States of America. There are some awesome other companies out there who are doing that. I would point to Zonomics as a really interesting company in the United States who is processing nationwide zoning information at a very granular level, down to, the maximum height that you're allowed to build or the maximum density for the project. So they are doing an awesome job of aggregating that information. Some of what we focus on, let's say if I am a multifamily or an apartment developer, it's extremely rare when looking for land to find land that allows an apartment building as of right, or by default in the United States. Most land is allowing single family homes or other use cases in the US. Multifamily is very restrictive. And it's a very big challenge for our multifamily customers to go and find land that they can go and build their projects on. And so they're highly interested in, one, showing all of the areas where I can build multifamily by right, which is some of how we started our company. And what we learned along the way of doing that is that even when you go and scientifically map all of the areas that you can build multifamily in a given city in the United States, there's really not that many options. Most people have already built all of the apartments on all of those possible pieces of land. So one of the other things that is really some of how our platform helps today is we can help you look for uh, points of interest or comparable assets. So we can plot, here are all of the other apartment buildings that are roughly the same size as the apartment building that you want to build as a developer. And we can find all of the land that's big enough for you to fit your project, say within a 5 mile radius of those other comparable assets. And what that allows you to do is uh, take a new approach to navigating some of this compliance and risk, which is um, show me where there already have been other approvals for this type of asset class. And if I'm nearby it, I at least have the beginnings of a story to tell if I go and try and work with the city to rezone the land and say, hey, I think that the better use for this piece of land, even though it's not allowed today, would be to build an apartment building. The reason why is if you look around, there's a few other apartment buildings already in this area that you approved. And we know that there's demand for more housing here. So we would love to play the role of delivering that here. Is that something you'd be open to having a conversation about? That's some of how we try and use our data to help with navigating risk and compliance in a creative way, rather than just literally interpreting, the letter of the law that every single jurisdiction has provided.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for this such a detail on my very vague questions. And let's go deeper into the reality of lands and building. Uh, what have been some of the tougher challenges you've faced, either as a founder or from an operational perspective?
Yeah, I think that um, communication is a really big challenge, especially when you're trying to build something new. So that from the beginning, I think, has always been something we're trying to get better and better at every single day. How do we communicate what we're doing in a clear way that also speaks toward how we're different? And there is definitely this spectrum that, we have to navigate as founders when building something new of, we can take the safer journey in communicating our solution in a familiar way by comparing it to other types of tools that our customers are already using. So they can say, oh, I know what that is, and this is just like that, so this is how I'll use it, which can help make progress very quickly, but has downsides to it because it can sell you short of, what you as a founder are doing differently. And so then the opposite end of the spectrum is, to be communicating yourself as something totally brand new, totally different, unprecedented, which has advantages in the sense of, you're promising something that does not exist yet, which could be very attractive. But the downside of this, of course, is that one, people will be skeptical, and two, people will be confused, most likely. They're not going to understand if you are introducing something that is entirely, totally brand new. People are very busy. They're probably taking 15 to 20 minutes out of their day to speak with you to learn about what you're doing. And if you can't get them to understand it, very, very quickly in that short window of time, it's hard to make additional progress. So we're always trying to dial in on that happy medium. So communication, I would say, is definitely a big challenge that I think we are getting better and better at every day. But I would like to see us continue to improve at. Mhm.
Yeah, no, makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned communication as education, basically. Um, uh, you're not talking about internal communication within your team. It's with customers, clients,
Yeah,
education.
100%. I think external communication, education, as you put it, I think really eloquently. That's specifically what I'm thinking of here. And I think that there's obviously always room for improvement in internal communication too, and being more fast and effective. But I think particularly when bringing a new product to the market and trying to fill a new space, uh, the process of finding people, convincing them it's worth taking time out of their busy days to talk with you, and explaining to them what you're doing very succinctly and how it'll help them. That is a skill that I am learning to appreciate. Is hard to master, but is incredibly valuable, as you get better and better at it. So yeah, every day trying to work on improving that. And I think, one other way that this embeds itself into our product and how we do things internally, I guess, is to bring this back to some of what I was talking about at the beginning of the call, being inspired by, Apple and their philosophy of taking, a more empathetic approach to building technology for the end user. Really the way that we define our product and the user experience. So when you log into Pillar as a real estate developer or a land acquisitioner, we want the language to feel familiar, to feel like you're, you know, uh, talking with a teammate when you're inside of the platform. And so all of the functionality we frame in terms that sit within our customers' area of expertise. So I used some of those terms earlier, but let's say like submarket identification. What is that? In the case of our customers, this is just a way of defining how they draw their market boundaries. How do I choose what neighborhoods, cities, or states that I want to be in? And we use that term submarket identification. There's a bunch of data analysis and technology that goes behind the submarket identification button inside of our platform. And if you look at the back end, it doesn't look like submarket identification, but we've packaged the functionality in a way where it works like that. And in the front end and the user experience, it's presenting itself to you as if, it's an analyst that's showing up to work, ready to help you, so that you can say, find me my submarkets, and next I want you to find me my sites and help me contact my owners. So, to us, internally, we're talking about worlds of, third-party APIs for mailing automation platforms and geospatial analysis and all of these terms that really don't matter to our customers and don't stick with our customers for the most part. But I think we really enjoy playing that process of wrapping it into an experience that's simple and easy to understand, so we can take and say, we know that this is a proximity-based geospatial analysis using points of interest on the back end, but when we can present it to the user, it's submarket identification, and that helps a ton with adoption and with, again, that process of education or communication we're talking about here, making progress together so they can say, cool, I understand that, I like that, and I want to use it. And now that I understand that's how this works, I can start to build on top of it. And we can begin to ideate with our customers and say, where do we take this next? Now that you see how this works, what other types of points of interest would you want to use? How else would you want to advance your submarket identification? And I think that's recently a point that we've started to hit with Pillar that's very, very exciting, where you start to see a little bit of signs of that product market fit, where customers can start not only to adopt and to use it, but to build on top of it together. So that translation process, again, coming into making it simple, I think that's something that also excites me and is a challenge every day. But it makes me feel like we're doing our job, trying to be empathetic toward end users.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, Max. Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, you do the heavy lifting on the back end and the computerized things and technology. In the front end, you have to speak on layman's word, something very very simple for everybody to understand. That makes a lot of sense, and I'm sure you're doing well. Um, what do you wish? I mean, I think it's this question is a little bit what you mentioned, but what do you wish more people understood about the reality of trying to build something in this space, not just the product, but the business behind it?
Yeah. I would say that real estate in particular is not a space that is conducive toward runaway rocket ship growth, in the sense, and I'll clarify that a little further. I think when you talk about starting a business or a startup, I think the first thing that jumps to a lot of people's minds are companies like Facebook, Uber, Airbnb, some of these unicorn companies that have made the most noise and have these incredible stories, but are total outlier businesses, like 0.0001% of what typically happens. And I think that there is a damaging misconception that the the right path to building a great company and a great product that is successful in the real estate market or the prop tech market comes from following that path and trying to emulate the success playbook of those companies, raising lots and lots of money, burning lots of money, prioritizing growth at all costs. um, that's my personal opinion on this. I'm, you could argue that Airbnb is potentially an exception to that rule, right? They're kind of in the prop tech space where they're working with, short-term rentals and real estate. But yeah, I would say that there are probably, in my experience, where we have seen the most success is when we are focused simply on building something that our customers want and love using, rather than saying, what is the thing that is going to make us a $100 billion company? And we're pretty content with following that journey. So that, in short, that's some of what I would say. I think there's probably a little bit too much attention poured toward trying to build a unicorn in the space, rather
Yeah,
than just trying to solve a meaningful problem for an underserved market.
no, that's awesome. Um, what would you say what are your clients' pain points when they come and see you?
Say the last part one more time. Pain points when what?
When they come and see you, when they want to work with you with a specific pain point in general, or it's all a variety of different things.
Yeah, I guess I would maybe say that it's twofold. Um, on one hand, we talk with a lot of customers who say, look, we have a lot of capital. We have a very strong capital formation structure. We don't have enough land to go and deploy that capital into to go and build new projects. We've got a land problem, not a capital problem. And so we need to get more effective and get creative, particularly with where the economy is today and has been, I would say, for the last couple of years. It's challenging to make projects pencil. And so we hear that quite a bit. And that sparks a lot of conversations where, we'll talk about how can we play a role in helping to get creative and identify opportunities that might have otherwise been missed. And then I would say the other common pain point is a little bit of what we talked about earlier, which is just fragmenting their attention across many different websites, many different data sources,
Yeah.
and wanting a way not only to bring that together into one place, but to be able to ask the questions that they really want to ask of it at once, instead of having to do all of this granular work to pick out bits and pieces from one website to another, consolidate, what their research into a spreadsheet, and then start to ask questions from there. They want to be able to ask the question and move on to the next one. And I think that's the other piece that really we're interested in helping out with, is not only consolidating information into a single place, but doing that to enable quickly asking questions. I mean, if you're using ChatGPT or any of these LLM tools, Lauren, you're probably getting the experience of how much better is it to chat and ask questions rapid fire and get answers immediately, rather than having to go and Google a search term, review a bunch of links, process that information, form your own answer. It enables a different level of thinking if you can just ask the question, get an answer, and then keep drilling down deeper into it. And I think we're trying to emulate a little bit of that experience, not necessarily through chat, but the experience of rapidly asking questions and seeing answers, say on a map or in a spreadsheet, so that you can go and ask those second and third layer questions, to try and gain new insights and gain new advantages.
Of course. No, that's very true. Um, let's zoom out. Let's zoom him out a bit. And what's your long-term vision for Pillar? And where do you see the biggest opportunity for impact in the next 12 to 24 months?
So over the next 12 to 24 months, I think that we've got a lot of improvement that we'll be making in identifying land in more effective, more unique ways. I think there are, we're, say checking for a dozen different criteria today. I could see that evolving into, 24 different criteria or more over the next, say, 6 to 12 months, that bring the results and the recommendations from our system above and beyond that of what even, an analyst might do. So that's one potential goal that I think we'd like to achieve in the short term. I think if we're talking, 2 years and further out, we're really interested in being the digital glue inside of a lot of these real estate development organizations. And so helping with finding land is, say, the very beginning of a very long process, a many years long process to go and build a large scale real estate development project. And although, I don't see us owning end to end anytime in the immediate future, that whole process. We are interested in saying, great, we've helped you with finding the land. How can we help you with the next job, which might be underwriting the land and creating a pro forma that, validates the research behind it? How do we help you go and create a due diligence memo that you share internally, with your investment committee that has a rich set of data points with clear alignment from top to bottom in your organization on, what they're looking for to approve deals? How are we helping you to measure the success of both this project that we helped you find, as well as past and future projects, so that you can have a stronger sense of your portfolio? So, yeah, we look at this as our starting point where we can make a lot of impact, but, the most benefit to these customers comes from being able to ask questions of all of these different processes and workflows inside of one place. And I think that we would love to, over time, see that grow and become more and more helpful. But for the present day, we're focused on becoming really, really good at this one space that we're in right now, helping with land acquisitions and site selection.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Then a better product more complete, more characteristics, more endpoints, and a little bit more services. The the financing and the things like this makes sense. Any
I guess
no?
the other thing that I would build on from what you're saying there, like you talk about adding, more endpoints. I think that to me it would be very interesting to see not even necessarily that Pillar is the company to, be this some like one-stop shop for a whole organization, like the Salesforce for a real estate company. I think that really what intrigues me is that right now there are so many different companies that are starting right now, new companies that are providing other types of information and insights in the real estate technology space. And I feel like there is a bright future for products that have a high level of interconnectivity. So we really love the idea of making Pillar into this system that can speak to lots of other platforms to help you and your organization be more effective, be more powerful, instead of an approach that I think is much more common today. If you look at the largest and most popular solutions in real estate technology, they're typically closed off. They're not particularly interconnected. One system is not talking to the other. And I think that a better future for the customers and for the market would be one where the technology is speaking to each other in an intuitive and simple way, rather than forcing these boundaries and these silos that the customers then have to navigate manually themselves. It just puts more burden onto them. And so I would like to see that lifted, even if it's not, Pillar being a single dominant platform. I would like to see it play this role in the ecosystem where it can connect to other solutions. So yeah, that is one other component I would add.
Yeah, no, that's only logical. Um, More integration, more API, more. Yeah, that makes sense. Open source, being connected is the. I mean, it's definitely uh, what clients are looking for. When clients are getting into a software and they got stuck into it, and there's no way out. They cannot get the data out and and connect things. Um, and me being into AI interconnection, this is something that I'm very concerned about, and I just don't understand sometimes why people are such building things so closely.
Yeah, and I'll connect this to something that you asked me about earlier in the conversation, which is um, this say, I don't know, call it a whether it's a misconception or this this focus on building aggressively venture backed, unicorn style companies in the property technology space. One justification for that uh, I'll admit to is that if you look at the existing solutions that are in the market today, the dominant solutions, and how closed off they are, like you're saying, uh, this is one of the dynamics of the industry that forces startups and new companies to raise capital. Because let's say if I am building a property management technology solution, um, I almost certainly will have to integrate with one of the large property management systems, Yardi, Appfolio, RealPage, these large companies. And I say this because, originally we were focusing, my company Pillar was focusing on this space, and we ultimately pivoted away because the barriers to entry were simply too high. Because the customer, the property management teams, they're all locked into using, one of these property management systems. It's like their whole back office, it's their accounting workflow. They're not going to get rid of it. And they want to use new and innovative tools and technologies. They want to try new things, but it's got to connect into that core system. because otherwise their option is to juggle another login, another system that they probably have to export a CSV manually out of and import into another one. And I can tell you from talking with lots of customers in that space, a lot of these property managers, they're at the point where they're just done with it. They don't want to deal with another login, another point solution. It integrating into their property management system is almost a table stakes requirement. And to do this, it costs tens of thousands of dollars in many cases per year to win one of those integrations. And that's just the capital side. That's without talking about the time it takes to actually get in touch with these companies, get through the sales and the integration process, find the right person on the partnership team, and then the actual technology effort, the labor effort on the startup to go and build the integration and make that connection. So I will shout out, there are companies out there like Perpexo is a really interesting company who is trying to bridge those gaps and make it more seamless. But nonetheless, the capital constraints are really burdensome on early stage companies. And I think that one reasonable justification for why some of these startups are going out and raising so much money is because you kind of need to afford to be able to go and do things like that. So the market is depending on which area of the market you're looking into, it's not always friendly toward an early stage company coming in and trying to just build something with a little bit of elbow grease. It requires significant capital investment, and I think I can empathize with why a company would want to raise money if they see that as, hey, we want to go and build this particular type of solution. We need this integration. So it's a challenging dynamic inside of the market, and I think that's one more reason why I would love to see something that turns into more of an open ecosystem where you've got a software developer friendly environment where any startup or any software developer with an idea that wants to improve something is given, a set of API documentation like many leading software providers do in terms of HubSpot or, Spotify when their API was available, things like this, because it's just more friendly toward innovation. It's more friendly toward improving the lives of everyone in the market. So that's a little bit of my rant on some of how that dynamic, I think, might create that need for venture-backed companies. And I think that's one more reason why lowering some of those barriers to entry could improve competition and improve the market overall.
Okay, then maybe you'd like my following question. If you had full freedom, budget, team, no constraints, what will you build tomorrow that could move the needle most in PropTech?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think full budget, full time, there are so many pieces of information that are out there that are living in some government database or website. And there are a lot of companies who are going out and doing amazing work consolidating it. There needs to be more. And, there needs to be more of those companies who are making that information accessible for other companies to work with it and create innovative solutions out of, is my opinion. So yeah, if I had unlimited money, I would be either doing this internally or investing into partnership companies to try and go encourage people to do things like aggregating hard to reach public information, whether it's utility information, zoning information, permit information, things like that. I would love to see all of that get aggregated and centralized into one accessible place to try and build up this ecosystem that I'm talking about, where there can be nice, friendly, digitally accessible information for the customers and for the market to innovate upon. So that if I could wave a magic wand, that's what I would love to have. The reality is not quite there, but I think that there are glimmers of that are already happening today.
Yeah, like AI automation workflow, putting things together.
All of those things become much more possible when you've got the information, sitting in a friendly and accessible place. Like if you're running automations using tools like, Zapier or Make.com or N8N or any of those workflow automation tools, those work well because you can connect things like your spreadsheets and your emails and all of that stuff. But, that's the only reason that it works. If you didn't have spreadsheets and emails and all of these, pieces of data that were accessible, on your machine, the workflows don't mean anything. And so, yeah, I guess saying this out loud, it's kind of, you've got uh, two sides of the same coin, and it's really important that you have both for the better outcome, which is faster workflows, better insights. But you've got to have both the information in a digitally accessible format, and then you've got to have the tools that allow you to go and flexibly define the workflows that you want out of it. So there's a lot of improvement to happen in the real estate world to make it more like that world that I think a lot of people are enjoying today, using some of those workflow automation tools in other spaces.
No, definitely. And I love your insider opinion. A quick wrap up. One piece of advice you would give to founder building in PropTech today in general?
One piece of advice I would say is talk to more customers, talk to more customers, talk to more customers. I think,
Yeah.
I think, especially today, it's never been easier to go and build something new. And that's a double-edged sword, because on one hand, and we experience this, ourselves, on one hand, you can put together prototypes, you can make something that's complicated very, very quickly all of a sudden. And that is only meaningful if it aligns very closely with a customer or with a buyer, with someone who needs to hire or to pay, your tool to do a job for them. And I think that all of the times when things have gone wrong with us, we were not paying attention enough to listening to the customers and what they actually needed, and trying to build a response to that. And all the times that things have gone right for us is when we have listened very, very closely and iterated very closely. And I guess the last piece of that is to take it step by step, rather than trying to go and formulate some grand vision for the totally AI automated CRM that owns real estate end to end, and going and building that all at once. Personally, my recommendation and my experience is go and find, the single Excel report that's, one page, or go and find like the single PDF or the single email that somebody sends, right? Or even like the single row in the Excel spreadsheet. Figure out how you can help someone get that and improve that job first. And if you can get one row, you can probably get the rest of the rows. You can probably get the rest of the columns, and then it starts to grow and snowball from there. But personally, that's the approach that I've seen work well, particularly in the real estate market, and that would be my piece of advice to share.
Very cool. What are your clients or your ideal clients?
Yeah, so we work primarily with institutional level residential developers in the United States. A large set of our customers are building multifamily, single family, doing land banking, some manufactured housing. So really anything that has to do with housing, more or less, we are helping find land for currently. We've talked to some other customers in other asset classes, and I think there will be one day where eventually we help with other things like maybe retail. But yeah, for now, large scale residential developers who are hungry for land. That's who our ideal customer is.
Yeah, they are developers. They're not property managers.
Correct.
Mostly developers. Yeah.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. Building ground up projects.
Yeah, of course.
We're not helping today with anything on the operations side. Again, maybe one day, a long way in the future, that changes. But yeah, for today, it's all about ground up development projects or our customers and who we help with.
That's wonderful. I really enjoy it. I learning from your insight, Dylan. This was solid. Thanks again for being here and for sharing so openly about what you're building at Pillar and where this industry might be headed. In fact, if you had uh, one more something to add, what would it be? If there's anything you want to add
I think
that
the only
we
other,
didn't touch?
yeah, the only other thing I would add is that, if anything of what I said today interested any of the listeners, come find me
Mhm.
on LinkedIn. You can find me
Of course.
DYLANGOREN. I'm posting there, every week, almost every day. Shoot me a message, shoot me a connection request, drop a comment on the posts. I love engaging with other people out there who are passionate about improving the space, passionate about real estate and technology. So I would say get in touch with me there and let's keep the conversation going.
No, that's wonderful. Definitely, we're going to be published on Spotify and on the notes, and obviously on LinkedIn as well. Then they will find you easily. And okay, that's great. I had a blast. Thank you very much. That's it for today's episode of the AI Interconnect. Dylan, hope I see you very soon. Maybe next year for uh, great progress and where the company is going. And if you enjoy it, share it with someone who is building the future, or better yet, someone who should be building the future. Until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and keep building. Um, Dylan, see you soon.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Lauren. You've been an awesome host.
It was great.